Good morning. I am Chris Jensen, and I am the service assistant today. Before we enter into our service this morning, I have a few announcements about upcoming events and changes. This one is from Reverend Ann and the Religious Services team. In our efforts to address problems with spoken announcements in last year's services, starting September 7th, we are experimenting with a new process. Details about the reasoning and the process are in your weekly Windows email. But here are a couple of highlights. All announcements submitted by the deadline will be printed and included in the order of service and available online. Please use the online form. There will be limits on the number of spoken announcements and on the length of all announcements. And worship leaders will generally not accept announcements on Sunday morning. Please plan ahead. We appreciate everyone's help with this experiment. For questions or comments, please contact Reverend Ann or the Religious Services team. Going on from Eileen Kane, the Art and Aesthetics Committee invites you to join us, on Friday, September 5th from 6 to 8 p.m. for the opening of a new art exhibit in Channing Hall, paintings by Susan G. Trottier. And finally, from John Newell, John and Sigrun are celebrating their 58th wedding anniversary today. I also draw your attention to the announcements that are currently printed in the order of service. And now, let us settle ourselves for this morning's service. Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Albany, also known as Albany UU. I'd like to extend a special welcome to those who are visiting with us this morning, whether in person or online. We aspire to be a beloved community, open and welcoming to all. If you'd like to know more about our congregation, please join us after the service for refreshments and conversation. And you can also check our welcome table in the lobby. This morning, we welcome to our pulpit Diane Cameron, who is a spiritual director, recovery coach, and writer. She has been a newspaper columnist for many years, and she is the author of 3 books. Diane is married to David Pascone, and they live in Guilderland. Now, please turn off any electronic devices, and I invite you briefly to say hello to someone near you. If you're on Zoom, you're welcome.
Hello.
Good morning on Zoom. This is Zach and Willa Metzger.
Good morning. This is Irita. Good morning, everyone.
Hi, good morning.
Hello.
Hi, this is Jill Peckinpah. Nice to see everybody.
Morning.
Let's pause our conversations here and come back together to enjoy the service that is titled The Intersection of Spirituality and Style. Our prelude is Let It Be, words and music by Paul McCartney, shared by Randy Rosette.
And let it be. Let us prepare our hearts and minds. It is not by chance that you arrived here today. You sought and have found something bigger, than yourself. Inside of you, there is a yearning, a hope for more, and desire for a place of belonging and learning. This you have found a beloved community, a community that holds its arms open to you. Here, a home to nourish your soul. And now this morning, we join together in the celebration of life. And now our opening hymn is number 38, Morning Has Broken.
Each week, when we gather, we light a chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. Please join me, with me, in saying our chalice words printed in the order of service. Welcoming all free seekers of truth and meaning, we gather to excite the human spirit, to inspire its growth and development, to respond morally and ethically to a troubled world, and to sustain a vital and nurturing religious community.
Good morning, stylish people. I'm going to begin with a reading from Stephanie Paulson, who is an American theologian and also a professor of theology and divinity at Harvard. And she wrote this in her book, which is called Honoring the Body. It is called The Prayer Address. And she writes, "Several years ago, having miscarried a cherished pregnancy on the day after Christmas, I found myself seemingly screwed to my bed with depression, unable to work or read or pray. I was, however, able to talk on the phone, and day after day I wore out my friends, especially my friend Kay. The year before, Kay had left her job, salary, and colleagues to spend a year in prayer and silence. Violating her dearly bought solitude again and again, I cried to her on the phone. I am so depressed, I can't even pray. I try to pray, but I can't. A few days later, a package arrived from Kay. It contained a simple beige jumper and a note that read, I prayed in this dress every day for a year. You don't have to pray, just wear it. It is full of prayers. I did wear her dress. I wore it and wept in it and cried out, why? I let the prayers in that dress pray for me when my mouth was dry and full of ashes. And when I became pregnant again, I continued to wear that dress. Her dress was spacious enough to accompany me nearly to the end of my 9th month. Her prayers were spacious enough too, to gather up my fear and grief and anger and my joy when it came. So one day, years ago, I was on my way to meet my new spiritual director for the very first time. She had been recommended by several people, always a good sign. So I drove to the mother house in Latham. Yes, a nun. So after I parked my car, I made a quick adjustment. I took off my fancy silk scarf. I took off my good dangly earrings, and I deliberately dulled down my outfit. First impressions and all that. I entered the lobby and was directed to the small parlor to meet the sister. And when she rose to greet me, I was awed. Her elegant dress was made of a cashmere-like fabric. The black and white paisley was anchored by a soft leather belt with a hammered silver buckle that perfectly echoed the hammered silver cross on her collarbone. She wore tiny matte silver earrings below a gamine shock of black and white hair. There was only one word: chic. God laughed. For the 4 years we worked together, the first thing we did at every meeting was comment on each other's clothes and the best finds at local thrift stores. And then we talked about God and faith and spiritual practices. She was both an artist and a nun. No apologies. So the intersection of spirituality and style. First, an explanation of terms. What do I mean when I say style? Style is a manner of doing, shaping, designing, or being. It is expressed in art, design, clothing, decor, and in writing. Style, whether in decor or dress, comes from choices and decisions and some amount of rejection. We often say that someone has style when we admire the way that they look, but what we're really admiring are the choices that they have made. We get style confused with fashion. Of course, fashion is a noun, calling to mind Paris runways and Vogue magazines, especially now. But fashion is first a verb. It means to mold or to shape. We fashion dough into bread. We fashion clay into a pot. The word fashion had that meaning, the action of making something, long before it became the noun that means clothing. And fashion came to designate apparel precisely because fabric was fashioned into clothing, and clothing shapes us. So too, our faith or our beliefs or our spirituality shapes us. Now, this is important. Religion is not synonymous. You know this. You're Unitarians. Religion, you can have religion without spirituality. You can have fashion without style, just as you can have style without fashion and spirituality without religion. Discipline, though, is a word that applies to both. Discipline is a key part of style, and discipline is essential to maintaining spiritual practices. And with style and spirituality, there is an element of mystery in both. So, what do I mean when I say spirituality? It is not religion, it is not dogma, it may not even be faith. As a spiritual director, the first thing I ask a new client is, what is bigger than you? And people know right away. They know what their bigger is. But I remind them, unless you are a narcissist or a sociopath, there is something bigger than you. For some people, it's God, goddess, goodness, higher power, universal mind. And for some, it is science with a capital S. It is beauty, it is art. And for many, it is the ocean, because there is a lot of power and mystery there. The next thing I ask folks is, what is your relationship with your bigger? And I use the term bigger so they know it's theirs and it's quite legit. But there has to be a relationship. I always explain the advantage of a traditional religion, all traditional religions, is that it comes with. It comes with accessories and prayers and things to read and music and rituals and places and spaces. If yours is not one of the traditional biggers, you have to do that work. You have to find those things for yourself. You have to create your rituals. You have to find what your readings will be and how you will make that shortcut that traditional religions provide. And I also ask, and this is a key, when do you spend time with your bigger? Again, in traditional religions, that's prescribed. Go here on this day, do this thing at these times or this time of day, on this Friday or Saturday or Sunday, do this thing. But if your bigger is beauty, do you regularly go to museums, to the ballet, to whatever is beautiful? If it is nature, are you out there in it? And if, like many, you have said, the ocean, I am going to ask you, how often do you go to the Cape? And I'm going to ask you, does your screensaver on your computer have the ocean? Again, people with traditional religions, they have stuff, right? They have things that they can put in their home or on their desk at work. They have reminders, they have symbols, and you have to have yours to go with your bigger. Important, whatever your bigger is there occasionally an element of transcendence? Often that's how we find out what our bigger is. Not every time you go to the beach, not every time you go hiking, or every time you see something amazing, but sometimes. Are you transported? And after all, that's what architecture of churches and cathedrals and mosques is about, to work on our body and our nervous system, to take us to places that words can't go. So the intersection of spirituality and style is where personal expression through our clothing or our decor becomes a reflection of an inner belief or a quest for meaning. Much of this is about a quest for meaning, individual meaning, universal meaning. Hence, even someone who says, I don't care about clothes, I only go to thrift stores, has a style. Their style may be minimalism, their style may be rejection, but it's a style. Some think that these two, spirituality and style, are a contradiction, that they are opposites, but they are not. Spirituality is invisible and unseen, but it is a power and a guide, and it is internal communication. Style is also invisible. Fashion may be visible, but style is invisible, but it manifests as a seen power. And it is also a guide and a form of external communication. And both style and spirit are sources of creativity. Style is discernment, examination, and choice. And we know discernment is a deeply spiritual word. We sometimes think that style, as fashion, is all materialistic, and spirituality is or should be devoid of the material. But even that isn't always true. Right now, tomorrow, we'll see and hear a lot about fashion and style. September is when the fashion industry makes its biggest push. This is the beginning of the business year for anyone involved in fashion. And it used to be, and some of you may remember, that September was the time for the big, big fashion magazines. They were 2 inches thick ads primarily. And I recommend to you, and I think it's very spiritual, the documentary about Vogue magazine is called The September Issue. How those choices and decisions and rejections come about. Now, in those magazines, in fashion magazines, there are stories about how to shop, how to build a wardrobe, how to choose your clothing. And the words that they use are patience and discipline and renunciation, spiritual terminology. So I want to share another personal story. I have a favorite handbag that I have more than one. My favorite handbag I've had for years. It is perfect. It holds files, books, lots of pens, makeup, money. I love this bag. It costs less than $100. And I love this bag so much that I'm on my third one. I wore out 2 of them, and I had to go to thrift stores, and my last one I had to go to Poshmark, which is online selling of used clothing, to buy that bag. And that bag costs $100. But recently, when I went shopping in the city and went to the department stores, I was looking at the designer bags. I was fondling them, right? They're gorgeous. One of those bags costs as much as a car payment of a really good car. But then, at home, I'd look at the books that are piled on my coffee table, on my bedside table, on my desk. And what are they? They're books on personal growth, having a spiritual connection, and at the very top of the pile, always at the top of the pile, Thomas Merton, monk, philosopher, writer. And he had things that I want too: a life of contemplation, simplicity, and yes, renunciation. So how do I reconcile these conflicting desires? I want both, always both. Consumerism is based on the belief that problems have material solutions. Consumerism is based on the belief, we all believe, that problems have material solutions. And we do it with bigger and different cars, bigger and different houses, bigger and different jobs, things. But we also do it by attempting to consume more spirituality, right? More spiritual practices. We hear about them. A friend recommends something. It's like, that'll fix me. That'll make it better. I'm going to learn more. I'm going to do that thing. Or spiritual teachers. Thank you, Instagram. Now you have shown me at least 50 different spiritual teachers I want to try. I want to check them out because I think that might fix my life. That might fix what I perceive to be some lack or a problem. So it's spiritual consumerism when we get caught in that place. And count me in. Yoga mats. How many yoga mats does a person need? This many. Meditation pillow, charms, chimes, statues, wall hangings, a necklace to announce my belief in my bigger, and I buy things to proclaim my belief in simplicity. Spiritual wanting is still wanting. So how perfect is it that I'm craving a bag now? I look at my handbag is literally a sack that carries my identity. Driver's license, medical card, cell phone, address book, all that stuff that says, I think, who I am and what matters. But I still think the outside of that bag might change me or fix me. So I have to pray about my shopping, right? But I shop to help me pray. And that's true. I buy books on spirituality and prayer. I have spiritual jewelry, Buddha necklaces, bracelets of sacred beads at Kripalu and Omega. And you may have been there and had this experience. I am in workshops with hundreds of other people. We are giving up. We are letting go. We are embracing nothingness. We shed our need to consume. We release our materialism. At lunchtime, we fold up our pillows. We place our canvas chairs on the wall, and we congratulate ourselves on our freedom from needing things. We can live with what we have. Of course we can. And then we hit the retreat center bookstore like starving people in a grocery store. Necklaces, books, bracelets, scarves. We pile our spiritual goods on the counter. Now, I know, having done that enough times, that there is an emptiness in me when I want to shop like that. When I think the bracelet or the boots or the cuff or the coat will do something for me. It is the same emptiness that calls for cake and bread and red licorice and that extra serving of pasta. It's the same part of me that used to call for a Long Island iced tea or a glass or 3 of wine. It is the same wheedling voice that says, this one, one more will make you feel better. And isn't that the very issue? The fear of feeling that empty place that could be filled by spirituality, but we're afraid because we're not patient. We tell people in AA, sit still and feel. In OA, Overeaters Anonymous, we say, sit on your hands. We say to anyone with an addiction, move a muscle, change a thought. Does this wisdom apply to books and boots and beautiful bags? This is why, with all the choices and the decisions and the rejections that we make daily and throughout our life, the sum total is called our lifestyle. It is our decisions and our choices and our rejections that add up to our lifestyle. And this is where spirituality and style intersect. We dress to explore different aspects of ourselves, to explore. We create sacredness in our home by selecting the items that resonate with us, with our intentions. And aligning our style with our spirituality means making conscious choices. Staying conscious so we can make those choices. Spirituality and style deal with identity and intention and transformation. And when they intersect, the outside becomes a manifestation of the inner. Clothing becomes more than cloth. It becomes ritual and rebellion, reverence, and revelation. So I invite you now to give yourself a moment of silence and to think about your choices, your decisions, and maybe your rejections of this week. Let's take a minute. Our benediction is from Cynthia Landrum. We leave this gathered community, but we don't leave our connection. Our concerns and our care for each other, we keep those. Our service to each other, to the world, and to our faith continues. Until we are together again, friends, be strong, be well, be true, be loving, be stylish.
Hi, everybody. We have one more announcement. You don't get away that easily. Next Sunday, we'll be having our homecoming lunch, which means we're coming back to our regular hours. We're coming back to our regular coffee hours. And most of you know that we have the coffee hours are sponsored by different committees each week. So I have 2 quick invitations to everyone in the room today. The first is to invite you to bring something to the luncheon next week, which will be right after the service. Bring a finger food, not anything that needs to be heated up, and something that's plated that we can serve. And our reception committee will be having the sandwiches and the drinks. And then if you can just bring something to augment that, that would be great. Anything that's a finger food. And while I'm on the topic of invitations, I'd like to invite each of you to think about maybe becoming a member of our receptions committee, which is a lot of fun. So I can tell you more about that, and Sandy has a sign up in the back. Thank you very much. See you next week.
We can read together as the chalice is extinguished. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. We carry our hurts until we are together again. Amen. Happy New Year.